I have here a new lens that it's a budget miracle lens, and I'm really serious. Lots of people will disregard it, will say, why do we need this lens? And my answer is, why would you not want a small, budget-friendly lens that it's ultra light, ultra sharp, and has great amazing bokeh, and it's a standard lens for everyday shooting. So let's talk about this lens now. Hi there, Tudor Matescu here. In this video I want to share with you my excitement regarding this amazing lens, budget lens from Viltrox. It's a standard lens with the Fujifilm X mount, and also you can find it, I think, on the Sony E mount and on other mounts. So this lens, it's a 35mm lens on an APS-C body. This means you'll get the 50mm equivalent field of view. So a great lens for documentary photography, for portraiture photography, for everyday photography. This lens is made by Viltrox, and I've used it on Fujifilm X-T50 and also on Fujifilm X-PRO3. And I will compare it also to the Magic lens, the 35mm f1.4, and to the standard lens, the XF35mm f2, and to the XC 35mm f2, and we will conclude if this is the best buy. So let's first start with the aperture of this lens. This lens has an f1.7 aperture. So 35mm f1.7 aperture with silent motors. So it's focusing silent and very fast. Let's address first the build quality. Well, the lens it's made entirely of plastic, but the lens mount it is metal with an USB-C, so you can update the lens via firmware updates. And this is ultra important because you know Fujifilm firmware. So a lens that has a way to be updated via firmware updates, it's a must, especially a third-party lens. Also, what I like about this lens is the fact that it's coming with a rose petal plastic lens hood, but the lens it's very resistant at flare. So I've used this lens for portraits and for night street photography, for family photography, and for day-to-day photography, and I will share with you my results in these styles. But before, I want to address the weight, because this is where this lens it's winning it a lot. So it's obvious that the lens it is light, but the Fujifilm lenses are also light, and I thought it wouldn't matter for me, but now it matters. You feel that this lens it is lighter. So X-T50 it becomes a very light machine, and also X-PRO3. On X-PRO3 this light lens it's balancing so well. A joy to use, a wonderful way to use Fujifilm X-PRO3 with this lens. Also it's not blocking the optical viewfinder, and also it's focusing fast on Fujifilm X-PRO3. So after using it, because it is so light, it is my preferred lens to take with me, because again, very ultra light. Boom. Now let's address the AF. How I've said, the AF it's working very well. I've used this lens with AFS and single point. This is how I like to shoot Fujifilm cameras, and no worries, fast and silent. Also it's working okay with AFC, but I would not do street photography with a standard lens with IAF and AFC on Fujifilm. On Sony, on Nikon, probably there is another discussion, but a standard lens, lots of people are entering in the frame. Fujifilm, you want AFS. So no worries regarding AFS on the older Fujifilm bodies and also on X-T50. So really loving the way that this lens is acting. Now let's talk about the minimum focus distance, because it's important, and the minimum focus distance it is very okay. It is 0.33 meters. So 33 centimeters, very okay for day-to-day shooting. So now let's talk about the image quality. How is the image quality, especially at f1.7? So I've used this lens, how I've said, for street photography, for portraiture photography, and I was able to discover that the image quality it is very good image quality. The subject is popping nice, it has very good flare resistance. I didn't have any problems with flare, and I did use this lens without the lens hood because I wanted a small compact package. So very good image quality, and I was curious to see how this lens is comparing to the 35mm f1.4. After seeing the beautiful bokeh that this lens it was rendering, I was curious, and also I was curious how this lens is comparing to the 35mm f2 regarding sharpness, and I was amazed. Let's look at the indoor test and I'll show you then my conclusions. Okay guys, I really want to show you this. I'm not a pixel peeper, but it's very interesting, very interesting. We have on the left the Viltrox lens at f1.7 and on the right the Fujifilm Magic lens, the 35mm at f1.4. Both are shooted on the 40 megapixel sensor of X-T50. So let's look at 100% in RAW files. We are able to see that the Viltrox lens is resolving the 40 megapixel sensor without problems. It's really incredible. I'm seeing here details, texture, like a macro lens. And here, a little bit here, maybe the focus it's here, but anyway, under Viltrox a lot. So you are able to see how sharp and how many details the Viltrox lens is resolving. But also let's look now at the f2 lens, the 35mm f2 lens from Fujifilm, that Fujifilm is saying it's resolving the 40 megapixel sensor. Let's take a look. Viltrox, good details, good texture on the eye, and let's look at the f2. You are able to see that at f2 we have the same texture, I would say, like the f1.4 lens from Fujifilm. So it's very clear that the Viltrox lens is resolving better the 40 megapixel sensor of Fujifilm X-T50, X-T5 and so on. Really incredible. Now let's look at another test. Let's look at the bokeh, how the Viltrox lens is rendering the bokeh. So on the left we have the Viltrox lens at f1.7 and on the right Fujifilm lens at f1.4. Well, first it's very obvious that the colors are pretty different, and also in JPEGs you'll see different renderings. I'm really liking the Viltrox color, also the Fuji color, but it's not clear for me that we have a clear advantage with the Fujifilm lens. It seems the same. So anyway, regarding bokeh between f1.7 and f1.4, they are looking pretty similar, I would say. Of course, the f1.4 lens has more bokeh to it. But let's compare now with the f2 lens. So yes, it is more clear now that the f2 lens doesn't have so big bokeh balls, but the f1.7 it has better bokeh balls and better and smoother bokeh. This is what I want to show you. The bokeh of the Viltrox lens, it is much smoother. So this is why I've always said that an f1.8 lens from Fujifilm, it would have been much better than an f2 lens. I also did a vertical test to have more bokeh balls in the frame, and yes, we are able to see that the bokeh balls from the f1.4 lens are a little bigger. The image is looking a little smoother, but Viltrox has a pop to it, has a nice pop to it. So yes, you lose a little at the background blur and at the bokeh balls, but I would say you don't lose much, but you get a very nice good pop to it. Now let's compare with the f2 lens. Now look here, they are pretty similar because I've got closer with the f2 lens, but yes, the bokeh balls from the f1.7 are bigger and the background it is smoother and it retains the same pop because of the sharpness. And now let's go into the image to see how the sharpness is looking. And now let's look at the eyes that are in focus. More detail on the Viltrox lens, better sharpness. It is the raw file without any editing, So Viltrox is crazy sharp. So you are able to see the in-studio test. The lens, it is sharper than the f1.4 and also it's sharper than the f2, or at least it's sharper on the 40 megapixel sensor. So you are bulletproof with this lens. This is a lens that at f1.7 it's resolving the 40 megapixel sensor of X-T5 and of X-T50 and also of X-H2. So boom, this is why I'm excited. So such a small little tiny lens that at f1.7 it's resolving the 40 megapixel sensor, it's sharp, and you have beautiful bokeh. So where this lens is staying between the 35mm f1.4 and the 35mm f2. So let's look at these three lenses for the Fujifilm system. On the left we have Viltrox, in the middle the 35mm f2 lens, and on the right the f1.4 from Fujifilm, the 35mm lens. Well, you are able to see that the Fujifilm lenses aren't so sharp as the Viltrox lens. Next, they are heavier than the Viltrox lens. Again, not very heavy. I didn't thought that I would be affected by the lightness of the Viltrox lens, but I was, wow, the package is light. On X-T5, the lens is staying amazing good. X-T5, it's a camera that has some weight to it, not much, it's an okay camera for me, but with the Viltrox, it's a miracle combo to use. Now regarding weather sealing, the only lens that has weather sealing, it is the 35mm f2 lens. Other than that, I feel that Viltrox, for the price, for the silent motors, for the accurate AF, for the fast AF, it's beating these lenses. I really do not see any reason why I would use Fujifilm lenses now, except the fact that I do like the character of this lens. But I really must use Viltrox more to see if I would not start to like Viltrox more, because between f1.7 and f1.4 the differences are pretty small. And with Viltrox you have a good 3D pop to the image, a good 3D pop to the portraits, and it's sharper, and the bokeh is smooth and nice. I've mounted the Viltrox lens on Fujifilm X-PRO3 because I want to share with you again how it's feeling in the hand. Great, amazing package, very ultra well balanced. So it's very easy for me to take the camera, to raise it to the eye. It is small, black matte, inconspicuous. So a still see package, and you don't worry regarding the price, because the 35mm f1.4, it is more expensive. Now, how I am using these lenses. So every time when I wanted to shoot a 35mm lens from Fujifilm, I've chose the 35mm f1.4 lens, especially because it's an f1.4. So it's helping me gather light, it's helping me have a faster shutter speed. So this is why the 35mm f2 stayed at home. Anyway, all these lenses are great lenses, but now I am inclining more to the Viltrox lens. Why is this? Because again, in hand it is so small, so light, it is focusing silent, and the black it's very matte. And it's an f1.7 lens, not an f2 lens. As I've showed in my test, and as I've always said, for an APS-C lens, I want at least an f1.8. And this is an f1.7 sharp lens that is resolving the 40 megapixel sensor. So I think it's no-brainer that the new standard lens from the Fujifilm, it must be this lens, not XC35mm f2, because why would you buy that lens when you can buy this lens? It doesn't have sense. If you want weather sealing and a weather resistant body, then yes, the 35mm f2 for weather resistance, but other than that, for the bokeh, for the sharpness, for the fast AF, I do feel that this lens will replace for lots of people the 35mm f1.4, or for people that don't have that lens. Don't get me wrong, I love that lens because I've made many pictures, but this lens, it is very close to that lens, adding the fact that I feel that it has more contrast, more sharpness, and it has a very good 3D pop to it, how I've showed. So a great lens, a really great lens on a budget. So a no-brainer for me if you don't have the 35mm f1.4, or if you don't want to buy new the 35mm f1.4 or a beaten 35mm f1.4, go for this lens. Also, this lens can be a real contender to the 33mm f1.4. Why would you go with the 33mm f1.4 other than the fact that it's resolving the 40 megapixel sensor? You pay 5 times more on the 33mm f1.4, get similar AF, and get a very weight and heavy package. Yes, it will have a nice rendering, the new Fujifilm rendering, and it's an f1.4 lens. Don't get me wrong, amazing lens. But if you are on a budget and if you don't need pick, again, Viltrox really did it with this lens. A real deal. This is a real deal. Really recommending this lens. It is crazy good, and these are the lenses that I have wished Fujifilm made, because this I've always said, Fujifilm, give us lenses with f1.7, f1.8 aperture. The f2 and f1.4, For me, it's a marketing trick to buy both lenses. With a lens like this, you really don't need another lens to get. So in conclusion, I'm very excited that Viltrox made this lens a great lens. Congratulations to Viltrox and to all the users who will buy this lens. So if you are liking content like this, please use my affiliate links to get this lens. Subscribe to my channel, recommend my videos, leave me your comments. And by the way, talking about the Viltrox lenses, please check this Viltrox lens that you may want to pair with this amazing Viltrox lens.